Imagine finding out that the thing you do 100 times a day, that little throat clearing you don't even notice anymore, has been trying to tell you something for years. You've gotten so used to it you've stopped hearing it. The mug of water by your chair, the cough before you answer the phone. You think it's just you now. It isn't. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it is. My name is Dr. Thomas Grant. For more than 35 years, I practiced internal medicine and geriatrics, which is a long way of saying I spent my whole career taking care of people exactly your age. And I spent most of it frustrated. Frustrated that the appointment was over before the real question ever got asked. We're building something different here on this channel, a place where you actually get the explanation. We're trying to reach 100,000 people who are done being rushed, and you being here moves us closer. So here's my promise. I'm going to give you 5 real reasons your throat won't quiet down. All 5 backed by research. None of them you're just getting older. And near the end, I'll hand you a simple tool you can start using tonight. Stay with me. Before we get to the 5 causes, I need you to understand one thing about your own throat. Once you see it, every cause we talk about is going to click. I call it the slow drain principle, and it has 3 parts. First part, your body makes mucus all day, every day, and that's supposed to happen. Mucus is not your enemy. It's the wet coating that protects your airways, traps the dust and germs you breathe in, and keeps the tissue in your throat soft instead of cracked and raw. A throat with no mucus would be a disaster, so we're not trying to stop the mucus. Hold on to that. Second part, you have a drain. Lining your airways are millions of tiny moving hairs. The medical word for them is cilia, which is just Latin for eyelashes, because that's exactly what they look like under a microscope. They beat in waves day and night, sweeping mucus up and out so it never piles up. At 40, that drain ran fast. The research is clear that as we age, those little hairs slow down. Mucus that used to clear in seconds now sits for an hour. Third part, and this is the one nobody tells you, when the drain is slow, anything that adds even a little extra mucus hits you harder and lasts longer than it would have 30 years ago. The cause doesn't have to be big, it just has to land on a slow drain. Keep that picture in your head. Normal mucus, a slowing drain, and causes that pile up. Now let's name them. The first cause is the one I missed most often early in my career. It's also the one researchers say gets overlooked more than any other in people your age. The name for it is laryngopharyngeal reflux. That's a mouthful, so let me put it in plain English. Silent reflux. You already know about regular reflux. Heartburn. That burn in the chest after a big meal. This is the sneaky cousin. No heartburn. No burning. No sign at all that your stomach has anything to do with it. Just a throat that won't settle, and most people blame the weather, or allergies, or their age. Here's what's actually happening. At the top of your stomach, there's a muscular ring, a little gate, and its whole job is to stay shut after you eat so acid stays where it belongs. Think of an old screen door with a spring that used to snap it closed hard. Over the years, that spring loosens. The door still works, but now it drifts open when it shouldn't. That's your stomach gate after 60. And when it drifts open at night, while you're lying flat, a thin mist of acid travels up past your chest, all the way to the back of your throat. Your throat is not built like your stomach. Your stomach has a tough lining made for acid. Your throat has soft, bare tissue, and the second acid touches it, your body panics and does the only thing it knows. It floods the area with thick mucus to coat and protect it. That's the heaviness you wake up with. Let me tell you about Eugene. Retired electrician, spent 40 years pulling wire through buildings around Dayton, Ohio. He came in convinced he had a permanent cold. Every morning, a rough voice and a glob of mucus he had to clear before he could even say good morning to his wife. No heartburn, ever. He'd been chewing lozenges for 2 years. When we walked through his nights, The picture was obvious. Big dinner, late, then straight into his recliner. Acid had been bathing his throat every single night, and he had no idea. And here's the part that should get your attention. The research in ear, nose, and throat clinics shows that close to half the people with this condition never feel a moment of heartburn. None. So they never think to look at their stomach. The only clues are a rough morning voice, constant throat clearing, and mucus that shows up the second they wake. One more thing, and write this down. If you take ibuprofen or naproxen regularly for an achy knee or back, those medicines quietly weaken the stomach's own protection, which can make this reflux worse. Bring that up with your doctor specifically. So ask yourself honestly, is your throat worse in the morning than at night? Worse when you bend over to tie your shoes? If you nodded, hold that thought. I'll give you the fix later, and it costs nothing. The second cause comes in so quietly that most people have been treating it wrong for months without knowing. When you hear sinus problem, you picture the dramatic version, pounding face, blocked nose, the kind of head cold that puts you on the couch. But after 60, sinus trouble often shows up with almost no drama at all. You breathe fine, no headache to speak of. But up behind your nose, the sinuses are a little swollen and making a little more mucus than they should, and that extra mucus drips down the back of your throat all day long. The name for that is post-nasal drip. A recent study found that the average age of people walking in with it lands right around 55, right at your doorstep. Now here's the reversal, and I want you to really hear it, because this is where so many people go wrong. Most folks decide it's allergies and start taking an antihistamine from the drugstore, the kind that dries you out. Makes sense, right? Wrong. Those pills dry the mucus, yes, but they do nothing about the inflammation that's making the mucus in the first place. And dried out, thickened mucus glued to the back of your throat is often more miserable than what you started with. You end up clearing your throat more, not less. Take Frances, a retired kindergarten teacher out in Spokane, 30 years reading picture books to 5-year-olds, and now she sounded like she had a crumb stuck in her throat she could never quite swallow. She'd burned through 3 boxes of allergy pills. They made her drowsy and did nothing for the dripping. She thought she was just falling apart. She wasn't. She was treating the wrong problem with the wrong tool. So, what actually works? Something almost embarrassingly simple. Rinsing your nose with warm salt water. A clinical review published last year in a medical journal called Medicina looked across a whole range of these conditions and concluded that nasal rinsing is a safe, cheap, effective way to treat and prevent upper airway trouble, and specialists around the world recommend it. Here's why it works where the pills fail. A real saltwater rinse physically washes the inflamed mucus out, calms the swelling, and helps those little drain hairs do their job again. You're not drying the problem, you're clearing it. But one word decides whether this works for you. Consistency. Rinse once, and you get one good afternoon. Rinse every single morning for 2 weeks, and you get a different throat. I'll give you the exact method later. For now, just understand the flip. The drugstore answer most people reach for is often making it worse. The real answer is sitting in your bathroom sink. Quick pause, because I need a small favor, and it genuinely keeps this channel alive. If any of this is landing, if you've recognized yourself even once, hit that subscribe button. We're trying to reach 100,000 people who are tired of being rushed out of the exam room, and every subscriber gets us closer. And do me this favor in the comments. One word, morning or all day. Is your throat worst when you first wake up, or does it hang around the whole day? That one answer tells me a lot about what's driving it. And stay with me, because the next cause surprises people more than any other. Most folks have it sitting in their medicine cabinet right now. The third cause drops jaws, because the culprit might be a pill you've trusted for years. There's a family of blood pressure medicines called ACE inhibitors. Doctors write them millions of times a year, for good reason. They work. They protect the heart and kidneys. I prescribed them myself for decades, and I'd do it again. But they carry one side effect the research has documented over and over, and almost nobody connects it to their throat. Here's the mechanism: kept clean. These drugs cause a natural substance in your body, one that normally clears out fast, to build up instead. In a good chunk of people, somewhere between 5 and 20%, depending on the study, that build-up settles in the throat and creates a constant tickle, a dry cough, and an endless urge to clear. It is not an allergy. It's not anything going wrong with you. It is simply how the medicine works in a throat that happens to be sensitive to it. And now the detail that makes this so easy to miss. The cough doesn't always start right away. It can show up weeks or even months after you begin the pill. So picture it. You started a blood pressure medicine last fall. Your throat started acting up in the winter. Why on earth would you connect a pill you took in October to a cough that began in January? You wouldn't. Almost nobody does. Let me tell you about Hank. Retired postal carrier from Tulsa, walked his route 31 years in every kind of weather. Tough as a boot. He came in irritated, said he'd had a dry hack and a throat clear for the better part of a year, and his wife was about ready to make him sleep in the spare room. We laid his medication timeline next to his symptom timeline on a single sheet of paper. The cough had started about 10 weeks after he switched blood pressure pills. He stared at that page a long minute. Nobody had ever lined those two things up for him. And here's the number that matters for you. One large study of more than 27,000 patients found that adults over 65 had about a 53% higher chance of this throat side effect than younger people. 53%. This isn't a young person's problem. It's aimed right at your age group. Now hear me carefully, because this matters. Do not stop a blood pressure medicine on your own, ever. That's dangerous. But you can do this. Ask your pharmacist one simple question. Takes under a minute. Is my blood pressure pill an ACE inhibitor? If the answer is yes, there's a whole other family of medicines called ARBs that control blood pressure just as well and don't cause this cough. That's a conversation worth having with your doctor. This is the conversation your 1-5-minute appointment never has time for. The fourth cause sounds too simple to be true, and I almost hesitate to say it, because people roll their eyes the second they hear it. But the physiology is real, so stay with me. It's hydration, and it's not what you think. Your mucus is mostly water. Whether it's thin and slippery and easy to clear, or thick and gluey and stuck, depends almost entirely on how much water is in the tissue around it. Picture honey, straight from a warm jar. It pours in a thin ribbon. Leave that same jar in a cold garage overnight, and it barely moves. Same honey, totally different behavior. Your mucus does the same thing depending on your water level. Here's the twist that makes this a real problem after 60, not just a nagging reminder to drink more. Your thirst alarm gets quieter as you age. The research is clear. A younger person feels thirsty long before they're actually low on water. In an older body, that early warning is dulled. You can be dry enough to turn your mucus thick and sticky and not feel thirsty at all. So if you wait until you feel thirsty to drink, you're already behind, and you stay behind all day. Lorraine taught me this one. Retired bookkeeper from Cedar Rapids, sharp as a tack with numbers. She swore she drank plenty. When we actually counted, it was 2 cups of coffee and maybe 1 glass of water before dinner. That's it. She never felt thirsty, so she figured she was fine. Her throat told a different story every morning. A target I've handed people for years, and you'll find it in clinical nutrition guidance, is roughly 30 milliliters of fluid per kilogram of body weight a day, counting everything you drink plus soups and watery foods. But forget the math. The real trick isn't the number. It's drinking steadily through the whole day instead of trying to catch up at night. Keep a glass where you sit. Sit before you're thirsty, not after. Thin mucus drains, thick mucus sits. That's the whole lesson. The fifth cause is one you've almost certainly never been told, and it has nothing to do with your throat, your nose, or your stomach. It's your gut. Sounds strange the first time you hear it, so let me explain. Your digestive system and your airways are wired together through your immune system. The trillions of bacteria living in your gut, what we call the microbiome, help set how calm or how inflamed your airways are. When that gut community gets thrown out of balance, the medical term is dysbiosis, just a fancy word for the wrong mix of bugs. It can switch on immune signals that tell your airways to crank out more mucus. Nothing's actually wrong in your throat. Your gut is sending the orders, and your throat is just following them. Researchers call this link the gut-lung axis, and it's a serious, growing area of study, published in respected medical journals. In animal studies, when mice were given gut bacteria from people with chronic lung disease, those mice started making more airway mucus. That's a direct line from the gut to the airway. So what knocks the gut out of balance in someone your age? A diet thin on fiber and fermented foods. Round after round of antibiotics over a lifetime. Too much sugar. Long stretches of stress. None of that is exotic. That's ordinary life for a lot of folks past 60. Roy, a former machinist out of Knoxville, had taken antibiotics maybe a dozen times over the years for one infection or another, never thought twice about it. His diet was meat, white bread, and not much else. His throat had bothered him for ages. We didn't fix it with a lozenge. We started with his gut. You won't lozenge your way out of this one either, but you can feed the right bacteria, and I'll show you how right now. Let's pull it all together, because 5 causes is a lot to hold, and I want you walking away with something you can use tonight. Silent reflux, acid creeping up while you sleep with no heartburn to warn you. Postnasal drip, quiet sinus inflammation dripping down all day. The ACE inhibitor cough, a side effect that shows up months late and never gets connected. Quiet dehydration, hiding just under the thirst you no longer feel. And gut imbalance, sending inflammation orders up to airways that have done nothing wrong. 5 different doors, 1 tired throat. Here's the idea that ties them together. Every one of these lands on that slow drain we talked about at the start. Fix the cause, lighten the load on the drain, and the throat finally clears. So here's the tool I promised. I call it the Clear Morning Reset, and it's 5 things you start this week. 1. Stop eating 3 full hours before you lie down. That gives the stomach gate its best chance to stay shut. 2. Raise the head of your bed a couple of inches with a firm wedge under the mattress, not a stack of pillows that just kinks your neck. Let gravity keep the acid down. 3. A full glass of warm water before bed and 1 or 2 more first thing in the morning before coffee. That alone breaks up the overnight build-up. 4. A daily warm salt water nose rinse every morning for 2 weeks before you judge it. 5. 1 small serving of a fermented food a day. Plain yogurt with live cultures, a little kefir, a forkful of sauerkraut. And take these questions to your doctor. Is my blood pressure pill an ACE inhibitor? And is an ARB an option for me? Could silent reflux explain my morning throat? Do any of my other medicines dry me out or affect my stomach lining? Write them down before you go. Now, before I let you go, I want to say something that has nothing to do with mucus. For years, maybe somebody told you this was just getting old, just part of the deal. Live with it. Throw that out. What you've been carrying isn't a character flaw, and it isn't your age handing you a sentence. It's specific, identifiable, fixable physiology, and you deserve to have it explained a long time ago. So hear me. You have the right to ask why, and to keep asking until the answer makes sense. You have the right to understand every pill in your cabinet and what it's doing to you. And you have the right to be more than a name on a clipboard, more than the next slot before lunch. You are not a chart number. You are not a 15-minute appointment. You're a person with a body that has been talking to you this whole time, in the only language it has, and now you know how to listen. That throat clearing was never random. It was a message, and you just learned to read it. One important note before we close. Everything I've shared today is general education, not personal medical advice, and I'm a retired physician, not your doctor. Please don't change or stop any medication on your own. Take what you learned here and bring it to the doctor who knows your history. If this helped you make sense of something you've lived with for years, do 3 quick things for me. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. And I've got a video on the way about how gut health drives the inflammation behind so many complaints I hear from folks your age. Share this with one person you know who's been quietly clearing their throat for years. And tell me in the comments which of these 5 surprised you the most. I read them all. Your body is talking. I'm just helping you listen.